Hello and welcome to Moneycontrol. This is your host K. Shriniwas Rao, and today I'm here with two senior journalists, Mr. Ayaz Memon and Mr. Jamie Alter, to talk about the upcoming Indian Premier League pair auctions. Welcome, gentlemen, and let's see how clued in
Thanks a lot, Srini.
everybody is. Yeah, Jamie, we have you here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Right, right. So yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And this is less than a year that we have another round of auctions. And I thought the last mega auction was, and this is my personal opinion, the last mega auction that we saw was probably the end of a 15-year-old tradition. Less than a year, and we are back to another one. Let's start with you, Ayaz. What is the auction? What is the very word auction signal to you now? Does it still retain its charm the way we've known it? Or
Well,
probably.
yeah, I think Srini, there is a charm, there's suspense, there's a and the way things have transpired, you're right. I mean, just after a mega auction to come back into another auction might seem a little, premature in many ways, or a little, unexpected in that sense. But there's so much that has happened in cricket, and especially over the last 6 8 months, we've had the Asia Cup, we've had the T20 World Cup, where we saw a lot of ups and downs in fortunes of players and of teams, etc. And we've also seen, for instance, the dramatic rise of England as a cricketing powerhouse across formats. And a lot of the English players have thrown their hats into the ring. So I think there's going to be, and obviously there are teams
I
which are looking
think
to
we are
now.
losing Ayaz here. As there seems to be a network issue
Oh,
at one end. Yeah, can you hear me? Yes.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you.
Yep.
Yeah,
So can you hear me now? Okay.
yeah. Continue.
No, so I was saying, coming after it might seem a little premature in the sense that we have another auction coming up. But there's so much that has transpired in the world of cricket in the last 8 9 months, 10 months, that as always there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of suspense as to who will go for which player. There's a lot of talent which is coming up, and there are lots of gaps to be plugged for all the teams. And then there is the other dimension which we all know about the auctions, that not everybody has the same amount of money remaining. It's not the start of the auction where you have a certain purse. Most so many of the franchises have spent a heck of a lot of money. Some have been conservative. What will they go for? What will they buy? Which players are they looking for? And I think what has happened, especially, we've had the Asia Cup, we have had the World T20, ups and downs fortunes of players and of teams, guys who looked, big shots earlier, not such big shots now, and so on. I think what has happened, the most dramatic thing that has happened in international cricket is the rise and rise and rise of England, uncontrolled rise over the past 3 4 years, from winning the ODI World Cup to winning the T20 World Cup, and now they're not the number one test team, but hey, they're probably the best team in many decades. So and those players, some of those players have thrown their hats in the ring. I'm absolutely fascinated that somebody like a Joe Root, who actually used to earlier debunk the IPL, didn't show any fascination for it at all, is now in the running. There's also Harry Brooks, a young talent who holds out so much promise. And then there are guys like Ben Stokes and Cameron Green, who's now suddenly become a hot T20 player, which everybody, or at least the Australian team covets, and so would other teams.
So, Jamie, pick your guy. Who do you think is the player that everybody is going to go after? The one guy you think is going to fetch in the big bucks?
I mean, look, Srini, it's not a straightforward question because we know what Ben Stokes has done. I mean, I go back to that rising Pune Super Giants, that 2 season Stokes was there. He got 100. He was taking wickets. He is the obvious name, but someone that Ayaz just mentioned, Cameron Green, right? I think the fact that look, IPL, I mean, the IPL has a certain affinity for tall, muscular, blonde Australian all-rounders, right? You think of Shane Watson, like in many sense, he was like Mr. IPL. So I think Cameron Green, if he stays fit, he's gonna go for big bucks because he can open, he can bat in the middle order. He's got, I mean, the catches the guy takes in the gully region. I mean, he's a gun fielder, and then he bowls you up to 4 overs of quality pace. So it's these all round. I know Sam Curran also is an obvious choice, but I think the fact that the Cameron Green can open and really, like Shane Watson did for all those years, really make the power play count. And I keep saying it on all these shows that I go on. T20 is all about the power play. You can get to 120, 135 in 14 overs, but it's the teams that dominate the first six. And that's why I think for me, it's going to be Cameron Green.
And the what we saw in the previous auction was that the franchisees went for India cricketers, and the big bucks were kept for the big India names, or even the upcoming lesser known India names. But the India story had become the talking point. You think you think as there is you see that trend continuing now, or you see that was the core in the making, and now franchise is going to probably look at the big picture in terms of adding wherever they need to add the right kind of muscle.
So I think basically most franchises when the mega auction took place, they kind of put their structure in place. कि ये players चाहिए, and these are the players we need, or at least defined by roles what those players would do, if not by name. I would think largely by name and role. And I think that now is the time to plug the gaps, as I mentioned. And basically, when there was such a demand for the India players, you had to get the numbers right, because you can't have a team or a squad where there's inadequate number of India players. Then you are going to run into several problems during the tournament. So I think right now the attention will be largely focused on guys like Ben Stokes, Cameron Green, as Jamie mentioned, and Sam Curran, Harry Brook, some of these guys, and not to forget somebody like a Mayank Agarwal also. But I mean, there are some new faces like a Harry Brook, and there are some old stalwarts like a Kane Williamson and a Ben Stokes. So I think it's going to be very interesting, and it will be linked, juxtaposed with the kind of money available. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting auction.
There's quite a bit of irony here, right? We are discussing one of the world's best all-rounders, Jamie, which is Ben Stokes. But the talking point of this IPL auction is the impact player. Now, what does the impact player really do? The impact player actually cuts down on the need of an all-rounder, right? What an impact player is essentially going to do henceforth, from going forward from here, is bring the onus back on the specialist. So while we're looking at actually one of the greatest all-rounders probably going to become the name of this auction, on the other hand, we're looking at a talking point here, which is actually probably going to make the need of an all-rounder go relatively lesser. What do you make of that? And more
Yeah,
on the
look,
impact player, actually.
absolutely, it's a good thing. I mean, look, the first time I heard of the impact player, obviously the common thing was the BBL's X Factor player, right, which has been around for I think one season. But Ayaz, Srini, 2004 or five, the Super Sub came, right? The fact that that was
Yeah.
not actually something successful, I'm a little bit skeptical about this, because it does, yes, it brings in the all rounder, but it comes down to tact, right? Who that player is. So it's not something you can assume that chalo is bowler ko hum 10 over ke baad layenge, he can bowl 4 overs. It just impacts the entire balance. And I think yes, it's a small sample size, but we've not seen enough of this impact player performance from the BBL's X Factor players. So it sounds good. It sounds like something innovative, something funky. But I'm going to hold my judgment until we see it used. Maybe for 10, 12 matches in a row, because you have to. Then it impacts your balance, right? You mentioned an all-rounder treaty. Who's that player you're going to keep back for the 10 overs to bowl for? If the player is that good, he should be in your starting 11, right? So like I said, I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to these. I won't use the word gimmick, but these innovations, because ultimately, if you get it wrong on the day, you're going to have egg on your face.
Right, right. Let's take the same idea of Ben Stokes a little further. Right now, what I can think of is Sunrisers and the desperation. They need a captain, and is there a better captain available right now than Ben Ayaz? I mean, in whatever is in play right now.
Clearly not, but he's a Test match captain. He's not no longer an ODI or a T20 captain for England. And my question here would be that is Ben Stokes ready for captaincy of a franchise? Because let's not forget the IPL is hugely demanding. There's so much pressure, and for somebody like a Ben Stokes who's a match winner, he's just such a great player. Does he want to be burdened further by this? Maybe for this season. Remember, England is virtually out of the World Test Championship, so he doesn't have much to think about or worry about leading into the next year or the next season, home season, etc. When post the World WTTC final, where England is not there, maybe he will refocus again only on test matches. This could be an interesting, if I may say so, a diversion for him to just keep. And the onus of leading a franchise to victory could also be an incentive for him. It could just get his competitive juices flowing again. So who knows? But it's a tough call, I think, for Ben Stokes personally. There's so much talk about workload management, which is just not to do about physically playing different formats throughout the year, but there's also the mental load that captains go through, which can be a factor. And somebody like Ben Stokes, who's been in many ways, very picky about what he's been doing over the past 18, 20 months or 24 months, I would be very interested to know whether he is interested in the captaincy or not.
Ayaz, there's a very interesting point here, actually. Tell me, what do you think about this? In general, drifting away from, the auction, in general, I want to make a point here. Is there a serious dearth? There is a serious dearth of captaincy and leadership roles that we are noticing in IPL, which actually is a very telling story because, again, you have global participation here, and the greatest of talents from around the world are here to look at. And if here is where we are looking at a dearth in captaincy, then I'm probably wondering what is the big picture we are looking at.
So, Srini, I think the mortality rate of captains in T20 certainly is very high. I mean, somebody like a Kane Williamson, if you look at it last year or years or season before that, he was thought as the best man to lead SRH, and now he's no longer there. Within a season or two, for instance, it happened with David Warner and so on with Mayank Agarwal, and I mean there are umpteen examples, and not just at the IPL level, it is also true of the international level, and therefore, uh, I think the captaincy part is very exciting in T20 because the pace is so frenetic, but also it's got its own challenges, and I think only the very best survive. And I don't think that they survive there's a sell by date. Ian Chappell used to say about captaincy in test matches that if you've had a 4-5 year run, you should by on your own say, thank you, I've had enough, and move on and become a specialist player or whatever else you're doing. Don't have the burden of captaincy on you. And he gave it to his brother, as you remember. But in
Yeah.
T20, I think the mortality rate is extremely high. Australia, for instance, winners of the World T20 last year, ended up in the rubbish heap, so to speak, this within 10, 11 months. And poor Aaron Finch, who was kind of hoping to get a very warm send off, didn't quite end up. It didn't quite end up that way. So I think that the job of the captain is loaded. I mean, we keep saying it as a cliche that it's a crown of thorns, but I think it's just far too demanding, and there are it's like a pitfall at every corner.
Right, right. So while we talk of captaincy, Jamie, it's also very important to consider that players who probably have not been full-time captains but have probably, kind of have done yeoman service for their franchises. We don't need to look beyond Karen Pollard, and that name is now out of the MI squad list. Now that is a gaping hole that I might have to fill. I'm not even actually I have other worries too when I look at the MI camp, where I want to see what kind of a pace bowler do they target in this auction, what kind of a spinner do they target in the auction, because I see them with a desperate need to get a bowler or a spinner and a pacer both on board. But let's leave everything, let's leave impact players aside, let's leave all those discussions aside. Kyron Pollard is not going to be there, and what is that kind of space that I might have to fill? And I think those are very big shoes to fill, actually.
No, huge. I mean, this guy, and Andre Russell, wherever they go across the globe, they win titles, right? I think that is the ultimate benchmark of how you judge any player playing these leagues. What are they contributing on the field, in the back room, motivation? So to fill Kyron Pollard's, I don't know what size, 14 shoes probably, it's a huge thing. Now, I know, Srini, with Kyron Pollard, the last 2.5 years, the diminishing margin of returns have probably sort of eased Mumbai into it. Like they would have known कि at some point हमें Kyron Pollard को shawl पहना के अलविदा करना पड़ेगा. But the fact that they've still kept him around means he's going to have some say. But how do you replace a man who can bowl 4 overs of cutters? He's got a huge shoulder. He can bowl the effort ball. His catches, gentlemen, the amount of times we've seen him leap 12, 15 feet in the air and pluck catches. How do you replace that? How do you replace the guy who can in 18 balls get you 40, 45? So it's very, very tough. Just like CSK and Dwayne Bravo, it's going to be very, very tough for Mumbai Indians to find someone. I mean, where do you even start to look? There is no up and coming, forget the West Indies, there's no up and coming all rounder of that stature. We mentioned Stokes, we mentioned Green, we mentioned Sam Curran. But for that specific role, to bat six, to bat seven, to just come on and every time and win matches, like you said, Srini, huge gaping hole, and good luck to them trying to plug that hole.
Right. And then finally, before I actually move on to something, since we're on the franchisees, the one big question, another one that I have here, which continues to rankle me, is Kolkata Knight Riders. The one franchise, actually, wait, let me club this question with the Punjab Kings. Look at both of them. One is flush with cash, doesn't know where to spend. The Punjab is going with a kind of salary that they can buy a completely new team altogether. Now look at Kolkata. On the other hand, they had their task cut out. They don't have a purse, but look at the spots they have to fill. One by one. But I'll start with as like KKR. I mean, the task looks cut out for them, and obviously it's like a kind of steep one for them.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm sometimes I wonder what the thinking is and what's been the plan, what is the game plan, what is the tactic which is coming up, what is the strategy. Obviously, it's linked to the money you got, the players you've already retained. Who are you eyeing at this point in time? It just seems to me. I mean, I must say I have no clarity on it at all. Maybe one should ask some of the guys who are behind, at the back end of KKR, whatever their, what their plan is. But you're right. I mean, I think the IPL itself has evolved into such a situation where also it's a little confounding, because whatever you think is simply linear logic and that's how it should go actually doesn't follow that logic, and then you have all kinds of lateral thinking which comes in, and hey, sometimes they get results. So who's to say? I mean, just to go back to the first IPL, who would have thought Rajasthan Royals would win? And who would have thought Deccan Chargers would then finish last, having the best team on paper? And then let's I mean, I don't want to go further into how 15 years have evolved, but I would say in the IPL, expect the unexpected. But if you're looking for linear logic, it's extremely difficult to find it.
Right, right. And Jimmy, Punjab, you think, yeah, when you look at Punjab, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And I want an honest answer, like, right now.
I will only give you an honest answer as always. Utter no hopers. I mean, the amount of time they've put a good team, Srini, Ayaz, on the park, right? But they ended up like, I think they have the maximum like second last finishes of all the IPL. I mean, someone like KL Rahul, I know he's moved on 5 years in a row, top three run getter, top two run getter, but the team is like eighth or ninth. So perennial no hopers. I mean, I think they've reached the final one time. But again, like you said, they have the money here. But so many players, they need to fill. I mean, and I know that Mayank Agarwal is a name that we've all discussed. Ayaz said that he might be one big name going around, but he doesn't have recent form. He had a terrible Vijay Hazare. He had a terrible Syed Mushtaq Ali. So are you going to pick players based on what they could do? Mayank Agarwal also had a very bad IPL as well. So I'm not sure. It's the teams that need that one solid Indian opener. Are teams like them automatically going to go for Mayank? I'm not sure.
All right. So now let's come to the last leg. I want to wrap this up, but I'll wrap this up with a big picture question. And I want both your views on this. I am personally of the view that, and I've been saying this for the longest time, that the concept of an auction has passed its time. It's gone past its sell by date, and I've held this view that right now IPL as an ecosystem, just today a valuation came in where the ecosystem has been valued at $10.5 billion. Right now, that's quite a success story that we are looking at. And from that perspective, if the franchises are earning money from the ecosystem, I felt that the time has come for an auction to go away and allow these franchisees to form their own teams from the grassroots level, build their own structure. That is how probably a club legacy can be, kind of instilled and pursued with. Ayaz first, Jamie later. I really want to know what you all think about this. The future of club sport is actually what you build at home, right?
Srini, you're playing spoil sport. There's so much fun and tamasha around the auction, and you want to just move it away. Yeah, but I think it has merit. The auction is great fun. I think it also, in a sense, gives players a kind of a dipstick to understand their own ranking or rating, not in the official sense, but it's like actors in the movie industry when they say हमारे next film में हमको कितना पैसा मिलेगा, who are the highest paid stars, etc., etc. There's always a little drama and a story around it. But I take the point that you've got heck of a lot of money coming in. The ecosystem is really robust financially, and therefore each of these franchises could create, in a sense, its own ecosystem, and from the grassroots level upwards, build up teams and create, as you mentioned, a legacy, for itself, a club legacy which stands the test of time. So I'm not disagreeing with that model. I don't know whether it really remains to be seen whether there's a buy-in from the franchises. There's so much. This is almost like if playing the game Monopoly. So if you have that kind of an instinct where you want to be in the game and you want to pick in the auction the best, you match your wits against the others and try and get the best players on your side, and next year somebody else tries to get the better players on their side. Hey, that also has its own, I think, attraction. So I don't know. I think I can't swing one way or the other. I would sit on the fence. I think both have attractions, and the auction for me, actually, I find it very exciting.
Okay. Jamie?
Yeah, look, I agree with exactly what Ayaz is saying. The auction is fascinating, but I think it just goes back to Srini, the term you use at the start, right? That club loyalty slash the legacy. This is going to be the 15th year of the IPL. How many? Yes, I know that certain franchises have a huge, strong fan base. CSK, MI, KKR. But you go back to when Dhoni was playing. Yes, Dhoni is Mr. CSK. But when Dhoni used to play or still plays, most of the crowd forget their club loyalty and they gravitate towards Dhoni. It's the same with Sachin. For those few years that he played for Mumbai Indians, whenever Sachin plays, you're not going to see KKR fan want to get Sachin out, right? So around that, the legacy being built, I still think it's too India player driven, it's too international player driven. So if you actually want to get down to the grassroots, it's a fantastic concept. लेकिन अगर अब तक 14 साल में नहीं हुआ, it's going to take something very radical for all the franchises, like you mentioned, Ayaz, for the franchises to buy into that system. It's a good concept, but I think we're still some years away from that actually happening. But Shri, that said, I do agree with you. शायद auction का sell by date आ चुका है.
So then let's wait for that time to come. Until then, probably let's enjoy the auctions. As I said, it's always fun. Let's see what happens. Look forward to catching up with you two once again. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Pleasure.
All right.